Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 13 of the Nosebleeds section podcast. My name is Nick, alongside my co-host Thomas. We do have a lot more information, not really information, kind of messed that up. A lot of news coming out, especially in the NFL world. Let's just jump right in, honestly. George Kittle, Travis Kelce, two probably the best tight ends in the league, I would argue, and I don't think anyone's really going to give another name. But they both just inked themselves brand new deals with their current teams. George Kittle signing a 5-year, he signed a 3-year, $75 million deal, right?
5-year, 75, yeah.
It was 5 year, $75 million deal. And Travis Kelce signing a 5-year, $70 million deal. Both for tight ends, I would argue, deals that far exceeded, not just exceeded by like a couple million, but like far exceeded normal tight end contracts. A while ago, George Kittle came out saying he doesn't want, or maybe it was Travis Kelce, he doesn't want a tight end contract. He wants a George Kittle contract. I would argue he got a George Kittle contract. Up there with Travis Kelce, I would argue, again, they are two of the best tight ends in the league. What are your thoughts on these deals getting done? Do they deserve the money that they got? Are they entitled to the money that they got, the $75 and the $70 million deals? Is it for enough time, or should these teams have signed them for more years because of the amount of money?
George Kittle 100% deserves his contract. I feel like it's a great deal for him and the 49ers. He's a huge part of that offense because unlike Travis Kelce, I know this is kind of a dig at him, but I'm sure anyone who watches football could see it. He's not a great blocking tight end where George Kittle is, so he can stay on the field for running plays, and it could help them disguise, between play action and pass plays a little bit better than the Chiefs can with Travis Kelce. And besides, George Kittle is way younger than Travis Kelce. I mean, I didn't realize how old Travis Kelce was until I saw, I think, ESPN talking about it. George Kittle's like 25 or 26 years old, so 5 years, he'll be getting towards the end of a tight end prime usually. Travis Kelce's 32 years old. You're giving him 4 more years on top of, I think, the 1 year he has left. You're going to expect him to be performing at one of the highest paid tight ends of all time and for the next 5 years. That's something that's a little questionable towards me. Obviously last year he didn't even play like he was a 31, 32-year-old quarterback or tight end, my bad. But I don't know if he'll be able to keep it up for this 5 years that he's on this massive contract for.
All right, the thing I see with that is, as you said, normally you get to around like 30, you are at the tail end of your tight end contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would argue Travis Kelce has kind of just gotten better with age.
Yeah.
I would say he's been like always throughout his career like a pretty good tight end. I don't think he's been like bad. I don't think he's been incredible. Really, as soon as Pat Mahomes got there, his numbers skyrocketed. That offense really a lot of it flows through Travis Kelce. So I think as long as Pat Mahomes there and Travis Kelce can kind of stay in the shape and with the mobility he has, I think that deal works for them. It's not, 4 years is a lot, but it's not a crazy amount of time. For a tight end, it kind of seems like a lot. I mean, he's going to be going with this deal till he's 36, because you said he's 32 right now. I don't think it's that bad. George Kittle, again, is way younger. Has like 7 years. Like Travis Kelce has 7 years on him. But again, Travis Kelce has been good throughout his career. And then once Pat Mahomes came into the league, his numbers like jumped. He got to like another level, which is why I think he got the deal that he got. And I think he's a good part of that team. Another question I have is, where do the Chiefs have all this money?
You have to give that to the GM. Like, I mean, you've seen the jokes of like, oh, here's how the Chiefs are doing, and it's like on Madden they turn the salary cap off. I mean, they have probably one of the most dynamic offenses we've seen in NFL history. Between their quarterback, wide receivers, and Travis Kelce at tight end, it just makes no sense. And besides just having all those players at once, they're paying everybody. Like, everybody seems to be getting this massive payday where they're making these record-breaking contracts. It's just like a matter of time, I feel like, before it's like, well, now here's another good player that's not going to get signed and the offense is going to fall apart. But I don't know when that point's going to come.
I think they're trying to keep a core of their offense, and as long as they keep a core of their offense, they can get some pieces to fall around them. Or maybe they get younger players that this core offense teach them exactly what they've been doing. And it's like, look, as long as you do this job, we will not have any issues. Like, kind of like fill-in roles. So more or less like on a team, like, if you have like, for a football team, but a better example is probably a basketball team, right? If you have two really good players, just because it's smaller, but if you have two really good players that they know and expect like certain things from certain players on the court at like given moments, right? If you tell them, you're like, hey, like, we'll go defensive wise, because offensive wise, like, if you tell them to do something and they do it and they just miss the shot that they were supposed to take, or like something like that, like, okay, like, you just missed the shot. Like, everyone misses shots, but like defensively, that's like a lapse of like like a mentality and stuff. Like, that's like all mental. So like, if you tell them and you expect something certain on defense every single time, I feel like that's something that people can kind of like fit into, as long as they're like, all right, like, I should be doing this at this moment, this at this moment. It might not be to the standard you want it to be, but if it's like up there, it's like, it's not much of a drop off. It's, again, eventually this offense will break down because of they're just handing out so much money, so much money. But eventually it's going to break down. Also in the news for the NFL, Alex Smith, who has been out for a year and a half now, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
A year and a half, 2 years. Yesterday, we are recording this on Wednesday, so Tuesday was his first day back to NFL activity or football activities. Really, not just NFL activities, football activities. He's able to play again. Very gruesome injury. The fact that he's able to come back and play with like no really restrictions is, I mean, fair. Like, I'm happy for him. I'm glad he's able to come back and play. I thought he was a pretty good quarterback, especially for the Redskins. I think he kind of fit like a Redskins player, like a Redskins, or not even the Redskins. I apologize. Washington football team, because they are not known as them anymore. Terrible name. I should not have said that. But I feel like he's a very good fit for that Washington football team as a quarterback. I wouldn't say a no nonsense quarterback, but I would say he's a very like serious, very mellow guy who's doesn't care about the media, just wants to go in, get the job done, and do what he's got to do. I feel like when he went there, that was a big step up for Washington. What are your thoughts? Like, I mean, obviously, like, you're probably happy for him. Do you think he comes back to the level he was kind of near? Do you think he's a far way away from that level? Like, I don't think he's going to start the season, because I feel like he's still got to get, as much as he was doing, like, training and, like, strengthening his leg and everything, I feel like it's a lot different when you have no defenders coming at you, and then all of a sudden you're thrown in the training camp and you have to make split-second decisions on if you're going to run, or, like, is he going to, like, flinch when someone comes up, like, through a hole for a tackle? What do you think? Do you think he stays where he is? Do you think he maybe comes back even stronger because he's done all this strengthening and he's, like, a little better? He's had time to kind of read the playbook, read everything that he wants to do. What do you think?
I feel like we've never seen a quarterback with such a gruesome, severe injury ever come back from an injury like this. I feel like you can't predict it, but I honestly hope so, because I feel like Alex Smith as a quarterback has never gotten a fair chance. He was drafted number 1 overall by the 49ers. He spent the first half of his career there with the 49ers. They were on a Super Bowl run, and he gets benched for Colin Kaepernick, who at the time was a phenomenal quarterback and helped them make that playoff push to the Super Bowl, where they ended up losing to the Ravens. And then he gets a brand new start with the Kansas City Chiefs, and again starts to become, an MVP candidate, and they draft Patrick Mahomes. And as the Chiefs, if you're able to draft Patrick Mahomes and you see the talent, you obviously are going to move on for Alex Smith. But I just feel for him for being in two great situations where, he was having such high success, and both times he's like pushed out of that. And, now he went to the Washington football team, who wasn't a great team. And he was going to be the successor to Kirk Cousins. So it was a big upgrade, and I feel like most of the Washington fans were excited. and then he has that injury. But I don't know. I feel like he's a quarterback that, quarterbacks usually last a little bit longer now. But with a gruesome injury like that, I don't know how he's gonna do. If you saw the video of him and his family celebrating, it almost looked like he's limping just walking. I don't know how much football activity he's gonna be able to get with a limp if he has that.
Yeah, I saw the video. I don't, wasn't really looking on him per se, like limping or anything. I was just looking at kind of everything around him because, again, this is a moment he's kind of been waiting for. Like most injury, you're not out for a year and a half to 2 years with a normal injury. You're not. It's not a normal injury, really. Like you don't see that, and the fact that he's coming back is obviously massive for him. It's a really a huge thing. No one really thought he was going to come back. I feel like he is going to have some like mental issues and mental bumps that he's got to get over in order for him to get back to where he was. I do feel this is still a situation for him to come into and take over the role as a starting quarterback. I do feel there is a lot for him to maybe prove because, as you said, he really hasn't gotten a fair chance. I think this is a good start, or maybe not a good start, a good comeback for Alex Smith. He's not coming into a team that is projected to do very well. He's not coming into a team that is projected to have a chance at the playoffs, and he's just going to sit there and do absolutely nothing. Like, he's coming into a team where Dwayne Haskins is your starting quarterback, but Dwayne Haskins needs to still prove himself, as well as Alex Smith does. But this is a place where Alex Smith can kind of come in. He's got the experience over Dwayne Haskins. He can come in and start the first couple games, maybe see how he feels if he comes in and starts, and show Dwayne Haskins more of the ropes. Dwayne Haskins really hasn't had that good experienced quarterback to help him learn. So I feel this is very good in both aspects for Alex Smith and Dwayne Haskins and altogether Washington in general. Also for the NFL in news, Hardknocks is coming back with the Rams and the Chargers as they are sharing they're sharing a stadium now. They don't share a training ground, right?
No, just a stadium.
Yeah. But Hard Knocks is coming back, which, I mean, for me personally, I love Hard Knocks. It gives you a real insight to everything going on in kind of like a normal preseason and normal, like, getting prepped for the NFL. Obviously, it's not normal. It's probably going to be very different. It's very, I don't even know how to explain it. I don't understand exactly how it's going to work because you can't get those close encounters anymore. It's going to be very difficult, especially when you really only want the players and the coaches there, and now you're adding in an entire TV crew to kind of lug around cameras and stuff and get close to these players and coaches and try to hear what's going on. I'm glad it's coming back. I do think it's a bit iffy on if it really needs to come back. I do always love Hard Knocks. It's one way to like start getting into the football mood or the NFL mood for when the season comes around. But do you think this is the right move to have a Hard Knocks come back?
I feel like this isn't a normal Hard Knocks season, and obviously only episode 1 is out now. And if you don't have HBO, they actually put it on YouTube, the first episode free, so I highly suggest to watch it because I thought it was phenomenal. But the way they're doing it this year, I feel like is perfect because, like you mentioned with the camera crews, yes, they obviously still have to be there. They need to grab their own footage. And they're there for the practices. The Rams and Chargers both have outdoor fields that they're working with right now. But the practice facilities themselves, like the coach's offices where they usually have the camera crew in there, like filming the coach to get interviews with him, they do that separately. They kind of do it when it's at practice, and then when they get those like important meetings, like in this week's episode, the Chargers cut somebody and he had like a huge reaction. So obviously it's going to be a huge TV booster and view booster. But the camera crews weren't there for that, so they actually have, and they showed it, cameras setups in all the training facility offices. That way the camera crews don't have to actually be there, but they'll still get the footage they would have gotten without anyone having to be there, affecting any COVID-19 protocols that the team may not allow. So that's a really good way to do it. Honestly, I didn't even think that was going to happen, and they used it multiple times throughout the episode, so I feel like you're going to see that every episode from now on. And it also I feel like there's some situations that happened that weren't filmed previously because the cameras weren't always rolling, so I feel like it actually gives another boost to Hard Knocks in a way.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I still feel like I am going to have like I understand the whole how they're trying to get around it. You obviously like want to try to get that reaction, like as you talked about the player getting cut. You want to get that up close encounter. You want to get their reaction, how they're actually feeling. Like it's not that's what makes the show as good as it is. But on top of that, is this something you should really be doing with everything going on? Now, if the Hard Knocks cast and crew is being tested consistently as much as the players and they're being quarantined and everything, maybe it's not as bad. Like, as long as they're not able to just do what they want and then come into this facility and do what they want in the facility and no one cares, and the next thing you know, half the Rams and the Chargers have the virus. I didn't look that far into it. I just know that it's coming back. The first episode is out. That's all I really know. Again, I don't know. I just feel like this isn't the right time to, as much as everyone wants sports, as much as everyone wants to go back to normal, we are a long way from normal because, well, like it's still going around. There's no vaccine and everything. I feel like this entire conversation through every sport is going to happen for a while. We're still not back to normal as much as we'd like to be. So I feel like we do have a while for that. Hopefully, something pops up soon that is kind of like a reliever to everything going on. Because I still feel there's still a mass panic that is just not as big as it once was. As more episodes of Hard Knocks come out, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that. Maybe we will give our little insight to what we thought on the episode. If you think, or if you want us to do that, make sure you leave a like and you comment below that you want us to do that, because then we will definitely check that out. But also, kind of shifting down a gear from the NFL to college, we talked about how the Pac-12 and the Big Ten both canceled their seasons. Both of those conferences have, I would say, pretty big teams, like the Big Ten with Penn State, Ohio State. Pac-12, they got teams like Oregon. They both have some pretty good teams that you could argue could contend for top 10 placements in the NCAA rankings. Ohio State's quarterback, Fields, is obviously frustrated that his season is canceled. That, as most players would be, like, for him, this is probably his last year to play college football. He probably won't have this opportunity again because he's probably going to go straight to the NFL. Justin Fields started a petition to try to get the Big Ten to play their season, saying that more or less the same thing that Trevor Lawrence said, that it would be safer. 15,000 people signed this petition for the Big Ten to play their games. I know we talked about it last episode. Do you think this petition changes anything? And do you think this is a good move from Justin Fields as a player and as like a whole like PR kind of thing?
I don't think the conferences are going to change their mind, to be honest. I mean, I feel like a lot of people want them to, but I feel like this is a great move for Justin Fields. We talked about him potentially transferring, which I don't know if it would happen just because we talked about all the logistics, learning new systems so quickly. But this looks great for him because if he could kind of set this up next year, when scouts are asking, like, how much do you care about football? Like, this is the perfect example. He put an entire petition together himself just to prove how much he wants to play this final, potentially, and most likely final season of college football for himself. So I feel like PR-wise, phenomenal move for him. I just don't think the conferences are going to change their mind. I think there's too much money and too much They would have to kind of go back on their decision, which I feel like a lot of people don't want to admit that they were wrong in
Wrong.
a sense. So
Yeah, I get that. Um, I don't see my whole thing with it. Obviously, he's very young. He just wants to play. He wants to try to play and up his draft stock because Trevor Lawrence is going down as the number one quarterback in this draft class. No one's going to change that. Even Justin Fields has a phenomenal year. We all know what Trevor Lawrence can do and what he's probably going to do. He's just trying to up his draft stock because there are people that really doubt him. A lot of people doubt him.
mhm.
But, and I understand the whole PR thing where it's like, how much do you care? He did this entire petition. He cares a lot. I just don't think teams are going to, if you're going into the NFL draft, I don't think the primary concern of an NFL team is how much do you care. Obviously, that is a part of it. Like, look, if you don't care, like, I don't want you here. But I don't think it's I started a petition to play. That's how much I care. I think it's more of other questions on how you're going to fit in with the guys. Questions more of, are you kind of this leadership role that a quarterback needs to be on the field? And I understand the whole, like, and first of all, if you're going into if you want to go into the NFL and you don't care enough and you don't have that drive to kind of make yourself better and your team better, I think there's other issues you need to sort out before you make that move or make that decision. Because, I mean, that's just dumb in my opinion if you're going to do something that you don't want to do. Or if you're just doing it for whatever reason and you don't really care at all. Like, you don't care if your team wins, loses, this or that. And you could say you care, and then when you show up to training and something and coaches realize that you don't really care, well, then that's something you're going to have to deal with yourself. So I think all these players going into the NFL draft really care about football and really care about playing itself. And as you said, I don't think these conferences are going to change their mind no matter how many people sign it. For example, the president, Donald Trump, said play college football. I don't think his opinion is going to change the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. But also, to talk about Donald Trump said play college football. And there obviously were people that were with him. There were obviously people that were against him. But what I actually found interesting was looking at these tweets. A lot of these players were coming at Donald Trump saying, like, you want us to play college football, but you're going to criticize us for kneeling during the national anthem. You want us to play college football and risk our lives while this entire pandemic is going on. You want us to play football and risk our lives, and you're not going to pay us. We're just going to play for people's entertainment. And then there was a lot of players saying Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence are not college football spokespersons. That is their opinions. Obviously, there are people that want to play. I don't think anyone's sitting there being like, I don't want to play. I think they all do want to play, but I think they all want to do it in a way that they know that they are going to be safe, their families are going to be safe, and they're not going to have any issues. What do you think on the whole Donald Trump saying play college football and all the players, like the backlash he's gotten and maybe some of the support he's gotten? Because obviously, as we just talked about, Justin Fields wants to play. We talked 2 episodes ago how Trevor Lawrence is very adamant about playing this year and how he wanted to make it a point to play. Give me your thoughts, and what do you think? What do you think of the backlash that Donald Trump has gotten?
I feel like with him being the president, everything he says is obviously magnified, and I feel like this argument has been going on for months now with college athletes potentially playing this season due to the fact that they don't get paid. They're going to still have just as high of a risk as professionals. I feel like just because of who said it, it's gained a lot more traction. I don't think I think he's a football fan. This is just my personal opinion. I think he's a football fan. He just wants to see it happen. The backlash that he's gotten could be warranted for some people. It's a very touchy subject, so I don't want to say the wrong thing because I really don't have an opinion on it. I also want football back just like he does, but I see the players' reasoning for not wanting to play because there is that huge risk and they're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more with that, to be honest. I feel they're in a position where I feel like the conferences, No matter what decision they make, they're in the wrong to some people. The players just, I feel like there's no winning in either situation for anyone that says anything or speaks out. As more comes up for with college football, if more conferences cancel, or if maybe the Pac-12 and the Big Ten decide to come back, we will definitely update you when we find that. But also to the very last thing we want to talk about, the NBA 8-game bubble play. It's not all playoffs. It's just the bubble 8-game bubble games. I guess are done, are over. The Phoenix Suns were the only team to go 8-0, and they still missed out on the playoffs. A little upset. Damian Lillard is the bubble MVP. Monty Williams, Suns head coach, is the bubble coach the coach of the bubble. Now, I don't think anyone's going to argue. Damian Lillard 100% deserved that at bubble MVP. As much as he doesn't really care about it, because he just wanted to make the playoffs. He was pretty vocal about that. But he had 4 games where he dropped over 50 points. And to the rest of the Blazers team, the fact that no one has done anything to maybe help this man. Maybe to make some of these games a little bit closer. The only other person really that I've seen is really putting in a shift is Melo. I think Nurkic. He's been like, hasn't been incredible, but hasn't been bad. CJ McCollum has been horrendous so far through the bubble. I think he had one good game, which was the last game they played against the Grizzlies to get like the play-in game. Are you satisfied with how the bubble went? Do you think the 8-game play-in and the way the bubble's gone, because I think playoffs started today or yesterday, like full playoffs, did the bubble go better than expected, as expected, or worse?
I feel like it went as expected. I feel like the teams that were towards the top, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Clippers, the teams that didn't really have to worry about, playoff, like any play in games, like, the bottom Western Conference teams had to. They didn't really take it as serious as they will when the playoffs start on Monday. But I feel like some games were like a preseason game where they had the starters out there. The starters were shooting just shots to kind of get used to the shots in the regular season game. And then you had, when those bottom Western Conference teams like the Grizzlies, the Blazers, the Suns, the Pelicans, any of those teams were playing against each other, kind of felt like a playoff game. So you definitely saw the difference. I feel like that was expected. I feel for the Suns. They played phenomenal throughout the bubble. It stinks that they weren't even allowed to play in the play-in game. I feel like that could have been done a little bit differently, but I obviously understand that kind of gets rid of the lead that the other teams had worked for previously in the season before the league got shut down. But it went as expected for me.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more. The only issue I had with the bubble was, now I think the whole play-in game with if you're 4 games back from the 8th seed, you can play them and you have to beat them twice to get in. I think it's a really good addition to the playoff system, because I think the West has always been crowded with getting into that last 2 spots. So I think that's actually a good addition. The only thing I had, and I don't know how the schedule was worked out exactly, but the Suns, the Blazers, the Grizzlies, and the Spurs, I don't believe played a single game against each other. There might have been one game between them. I honestly don't remember. But how now? The reason I bring up those 4 teams is because those 4 teams were tied on games because they all won their last 3, which put them exactly tied. It was just depending on who had the head-to-head. Those 4 teams were exactly tied with the amount of games back. How did none of those teams play each other throughout the bubble to maybe knock a game off of one of them, or to maybe, if you're the Grizzlies, maybe you play one of them and you put a game in hand against them, so you don't even got to worry about that? Or maybe if you're the Suns, for example, the Suns, who I would argue is the team of the bubble, because as you said, a lot of the upper teams didn't really care because they had their spot. The Suns, because we really talked about, the Suns were the only team that were kind of you don't have much of a shot of getting in. You are so far behind that you don't really have a shot. For a team like the Suns to go 8-0 and then fall up short, which, I mean, they fell up short because they didn't do well in the beginning of the season, which obviously this is what it comes down to. But I still think one or two of those teams should have played each other to maybe knock a game or put a game in hand in your favor. I feel that, again, the way the scheduling worked out was probably based on who and how many times you played someone during the season that was before it got like postponed. But I feel like that would have made the final couple games a lot more interesting. Like, obviously, all four of those teams had to win on their last day in order to have a chance. But imagine if, like, the Grizzlies played, like, the Blazers and the Suns played the Spurs, or, like, those teams played each other, and then it's kind of like, look, if you don't beat this team, you are not getting into the playoffs. I feel like that would have been a much, much more interesting game, which is what the play-in game was, but I feel a lot of people didn't care about the play-in game because of how bad the Grizzlies performed in the bubble. It was kind of like, all right, the Blazers are going to kind of beat them, which is what happened.
Yeah, I feel like the Grizzlies didn't even show up until the play-in game. They kind of looked awful. I mean, they obviously won the last game where they needed to win to make it in. But, I mean, up until that bubble game, we saw a Grizzlies team that looked horrendous. I mean, to be fair, they lost Jaren Jackson Jr. in the very beginning of the bubble. He's obviously a huge player for them. But still, Ja Morant, I mean, he played phenomenal in that play-in game. But and they still lost, obviously. But if you look at the rest of his stats throughout the bubble, he was nowhere near to what he was playing, during the regular season. And that's what makes me feel for the Suns, especially. I know the beginning, that first half of the season had to matter somewhat, or else you just wasted playing for 4 or 5 months, however long they played for. But the Suns were obviously the better team, so, like, right now. So I feel terrible for them because they didn't even get a chance, to play either of those teams to make the playoffs. Where I feel like maybe it could have been expanded on a little bit, just because I don't know, like they played so well, and I feel so bad for Devin Booker and DeAndre
Or even the Spurs.
Yeah, even
like
the Spurs.
The Spurs, like, they were 5 or 6 games back. Like, I mean, the Suns were like 7 games back.
Yeah.
Like, they barely made the cut.
Yeah.
But like, the Spurs were like 4, 5, 6 games back, and they brought it to tied up too, and they didn't even get a chance. I mean, and like they didn't even get a chance to play in. I thought they were a much better team than, I think all 3 of those teams were a much better team than the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't get to play each other to maybe knock a game off, like, in the bubble, because obviously the bubble is like, obviously they might have played. I think the Grizzlies played the Suns twice, which is the 2 or 3 times in the season before it got there. But like, when you get to the bubble and it's all about, like, you don't have those extra games that the Grizzlies might lose to a top team in the East. You're playing teams like that are only at the bubble now. Or maybe like you're playing a lower ranked team and you don't play your starters, you rest them, and that's a loss that might come back to bite you. You don't have that. It's 8 straight games of you have to win these games. And the fact that they didn't play each other is criminal in my opinion. Like, you just put the 4 or 5 teams that were supposed to battle it out for that last spot, because I think the first 7 spots were locked up in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were.
Like they should have played at least like 1 or 2 games against each other, or like they should have each played like those bottom teams, and let the other teams kind of that play the games, like their 8 games, but just to get their shot warm. Like, they're like, some of those games, like the last like week, some of those teams were kind of locked into their spot, and they were like, oh, we don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, the Grizzlies, right? The Grizzlies went 2-6. The last game they played was against the Bucks. They played the Bucks. I mean, Giannis didn't play because he decided to headbutt Mo Williams. That's another story, but the Bucks didn't care about that game. The Bucks are 6-7 games ahead in first place in the East.
Yeah.
What did they have to gain from that game? Absolutely nothing. So why would they try? The Grizzlies had everything, so they're putting everything they have into it.
I will say though, you got to give respect to some of the teams. I mean, I'm a Celtics fan, so this might sound a little biased, but I know other teams did it. This is just the only one I can name, definitely. The second to last game the Celtics played was against the Grizzlies, The Celtics didn't even play their starters. They were guaranteed the 3rd seed. If they won, they weren't going to the 2nd seed. If they lost, they weren't going to the 4th seed. They didn't need to play their starters. They still did, just because they know those games mattered for other teams, but you have to respect that the teams did. So they're going to play their starters, not their bench players, but those starters, all they're thinking in their head is, don't roll my ankle. Don't fall awkwardly.
They're not, like, they're playing, but they're not giving their 100% the way they're going to once the playoffs actually start.
Yeah.
So, like, for a team like the Grizzlies who are playing the Bucks, who don't even care about that game in any way, shape, or form, like, I give props to the Nets. The Nets locked up their seed in the East, and they were giving the Blazers a run for their money for their final game.
That's a good game.
It made it interesting.
Yeah.
But now imagine if, like, the Blazers were playing the Spurs, or the Blazers were playing the Suns, or the Blazers were playing the Grizzlies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now you're sitting in a spot where both teams are giving everything they have, because if they don't win, their playoff spot is gone. Especially if you're the Blazers or the Grizzlies, because you have that spot at the moment. It's a must-win game. It's a must-win for everyone, but, like, you have that playoff spot at the moment.
And the Suns are the better team out of those two teams. Like, I don't mean disrespect, because Damian Lillard deserves that bubble MVP. But Joseph Nurkic is coming off. I don't think he played very much at all this season. I'm pretty sure he's still coming off from that broken leg, so he was just getting back. Melo, I mean, like you said, is the only other good player they had. And CJ McCollum, granted, he did have a phenomenal playing game, but he's playing with a broken back.
He's also been hurt, yeah.
He's a broken back. Like, what do you expect him to do? He's not going to be going crazy like he usually does. He can't. He physically cannot. So you put the Suns against both of those teams, I feel like the Suns win. It's just, it stinks.
Okay, even if you don't do the Suns, and I'm a little biased towards the Suns because I'm a huge Devin Booker fan. I think Devin Booker deserves a lot more credit than he gets. Even if you're the Spurs, I think, in my opinion, have been playing phenomenal basketball, and no one even cares that they even had a chance at making the playoff game, because I don't even know who the Spurs played, but the Spurs, they won their game. They did what they had to do the last, like, 3 games. I think they went 3-0 in the last 3. They did what they needed to do. The Grizzlies won 1 of their last 4 games. The Grizzlies went 2-6. They didn't even show up, and they couldn't even care less. And they still got in. Now, I think any team that got in, you're still going against LeBron and AD and the Lakers, but imagine if the Grizzlies won that game against the Blazers. That was one of the games the Grizzlies got. If the Grizzlies went 3-8, right? Like, because they had to beat them twice, I think.
Yes.
But, like, imagine if the Grizzlies got that, right? The Grizzlies get absolutely waxed. I think the Blazers are going to get waxed because I don't know if Damian Lillard can hold that many people on his back.
No.
Like, Damian Lillard is on such a different level than most of the other players, and I think he's been on this level for a while. I just don't think it's been talked about as much as when you watch someone drop 4 straight 50-point games. It's like, oh, wow, you're good.
Yeah.
I think he's always had that. He's always goes off, but, like, not every night in a normal 82-game season is someone going to drop 50 points. Damian Lillard's doing that, just carrying the rest of his team on the back. And if he didn't have Carmelo Anthony, there would be no secondary scorer on that team because CJ McCollum's playing hurt. Yeah. If there's no secondary scorer, the other team might as well just put 2 or 3 guys on Damian Lillard to expect someone to be like, oh, just shoot, I don't care. No one else is making anything.
Yeah, playoff Damian Lillard is scary. Like, I feel like people forget that the Trailblazers are a very similar team to what they were last year. And they made the Western Conference Finals all because of Damian Lillard, let's be honest. So,
well, yeah, that's what it is. And in my opinion, I think they got I wouldn't say they're a much better team. I think they had some injuries that they're coming back from. I think they have a lot of good players. Mainly, you have Joseph Nurkic, and then you have Hassan Whiteside coming off the bench. You have one of the best centers coming off the bench, in my opinion. Like, that's an above-average bench center. But then, the rest of the team, if they didn't have Melo, as much as people are like, Melo's not, Melo, people are coming out now saying Melo's not washed, Melo's not this. I don't know if he's been washed. I just think he had a really couple bad seasons with the Knicks because it's the Knicks. And then everyone was like, oh, he's bad. No, he's just with the Knicks. People all of a sudden are saying Dennis Smith Jr. is bad. No, he's just with the Knicks. Like, look what he did with the Mavs when he was there.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're the Mavs, you have Luka Doncic who's going to run your point. You don't need him, so you're going to trade him up for Kristaps Porzingis. Like, why wouldn't you? So I think a lot of people were very harsh on Melo. I think Melo's kind of showing like he's still got it. He's still good, and a lot of props to Melo.
Yeah, I feel like people didn't give him a chance just because throughout his career he's been known as probably one of the best scorers in NBA history. And people didn't think he was willing to change his role. You know, he went to the Thunder. It obviously didn't work with him, PG, and Westbrook. Then he goes to the Rockets, and he played like a couple games there before they decided to trade him, and he got released. But I mean, the way he's played with the Blazers has proven that the media decided that he wasn't going to accept the role. He's proven that he's okay, you know, taking a few shots a game, and the few shots he's been getting with the Trailblazers have been the clutch shots. So you know what? He's hit them. He's proving everyone wrong.
Yeah, 100%. I think Melo's kind of deserved his spot, and I think the Blazers next year are going to be a very good team when they are at full health.
Yeah.
And Melo is a huge part of that. I think the Blazers, without injuries, I think you also say, like we're talking about the Blazers, I am a little biased towards the Suns. I think the Suns are going to be a very scary team next year as well.
Yeah, probably.
DeAndre Ayton missed the first 25 games of the season. I think if you have a healthy DeAndre Ayton, they're a lot better. They went 8-0 in the bubble. They didn't have their second best scorer. Kelly Oubre Jr. didn't play in the bubble.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about him.
A lot of people forget about that, but like, if you look at Kelly Oubre Jr.'s stats this year, he had a phenomenal year, probably better than most of his other years. Absolutely phenomenal. You still have Devin Booker. Ricky Rubio was probably one of the best signings the Suns have made in a while.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that was a steal. Cam Johnson as a rookie playing absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a big player. No one talked about in the bubble. He played phenomenal for the Suns.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like you kind of like look at. I think they're in a very similar situation that the Blazers are. I think the Blazers. I mean, you have Damian Lillard. The Suns have Devin Booker, so I feel like they're in like very similar situations. But like a healthy DeAndre Ayton that's not suspended for majority of your season, I think the Suns aren't even worrying about this playoff spot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Then you have imagine if Kelly Oubre Jr. was like if they were fully healthy throughout the year, Kelly Jr. Cam Johnson steps into this role because I don't think he started the beginning of the year. Ricky Rubio, I think Ricky Rubio is very underrated. He's not this phenomenal scorer, but Ricky Rubio is one of the, I mean, in my opinion, one of the best passers in the NBA.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like he's very underrated. He kind of does everything and will just set people up. The Suns finally have a full functioning point guard, which they've been struggling to find for Devin Booker. Because now Devin Booker doesn't need to dribble up. He doesn't need to supply other people. He has Ricky Rubio, and then when people come to him, Ricky Rubio can make a shot. Maybe DeAndre Ayton sets a screen, and now DeAndre Ayton's open. They have those options. I feel that's kind of what, like, in a similar position with the Blazers. The Blazers missed another fluent scorer, a bigger scorer, other than Dame, and CJ McCollum, who's a little inconsistent. I feel like he's very good, but every once in a while he just doesn't show up.
They need a wing player. They need a wing player. I mean, they have, like you said, Dame.
Well, they got that from Melo.
Yeah, but
that's what.
But Melo plays power forward now. Realistically, he doesn't play small forward like he used to. They need a solid small forward, and anytime they find a good player, it's always a guard. I mean, Gary Trent Jr. was a player I don't think anyone really knew about before the bubble even started. And he comes in, he's one of the best scorers the Blazers have out of nowhere. But they need a solid small forward. They do.
I would agree. But I think the Blazers are still sitting in a pretty good spot. I think they still have a good team. I think they need a defensive small forward.
Yeah.
Because they don't need someone to really score. They don't need this giant offensive scorer. Because they have Dame, they have CJ, they have Melo. Nurkic can pop off. Hassan Whiteside can pop off. You just need someone to defend the three.
Yeah. What you need.
Melo, I think, is in the middle of every once in a while he can be this really good defender putting in all this effort, and then he could just watch this guy run right past him.
Yeah.
I feel like he's in the middle. As the playoffs continue, we will definitely be reporting on that because bubble playoffs, who doesn't like that? Also, props to the NBA because they don't have any confirmed cases still. The MLB, I believe the Pirates had a confirmed case. We will try to report on that in our next episode. But thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see ya.